All right, here we are, everyone. We are back once again. The year is 2020, and this is episode 4 of a very exciting series we call Cosmic Redemption, the Corey Goode Accountability Project. And in the last episode, we left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger with our friend Leon Isaac Kennedy giving his testimony just about his experience, about his betrayal and the manner by which he got tangled up in the very, very deceitful web of the Spear Being Alliance and Mr. Corey Goode. And so we're going to go ahead and let Mr. Leon Isaac Kennedy continue with Cosmic Redemption. Here we go.
In my lawsuit, I depict emails documenting how Roger, under stress, was rushed to the hospital with stroke symptoms, nausea, heart palpitations, and all the other prime symptoms of a stroke or heart attack, all purposely triggered by Corey Goode. This man.
So hold on, Leon. So are you saying that Corey Goode, through some sort of witchcraft or some sort of energy manipulation or even just emotional implantation of energy, intentionally drove Roger into the hospital, intentionally damaged him, intentionally tried to push him off the cliff?
Yeah, and I'm not saying in this case that he used witchcraft. In this case, he simply used, I'm going to withhold the man's money. I'm going to take the money that he's been waiting on for 3 months.
So behaviorally, through his choices, he caused, you believe, these events to happen, or at the very least contributed to the stress going on in this individual's life that, led to him having a breakdown.
He purposely caused the stress. Purposely. I'm going to lay it out for you.
Go ahead.
It should be noted that on approximately February 6, 2020, Corey Goode decided that he would commandeer all of the finances for the documentary Cosmic Secret. He sent a memo of extortion to me, stating that if I did not want to be in the middle of this, because I kept saying to him, I did not want to be in the middle of this business divorce between he and Roger. I kept saying, you two need to work it out. I don't mind arbitrating it. I don't mind sitting there and hearing both sides, but I don't want to just keep being in the middle of this. So he sent this email of extortion to me, basically stating if I didn't want to be in the middle, just send him all the money. Now, Corey stated that he wanted all the money, and this was an excuse he used, until an accounting took place. Now, this team, when you're working with a distribution company, they go out and collect money, but it takes X amount of time for them to collect the money. Then they always sit on the money for X amount of time to draw interest and so on and so forth. They sit on it longer than they should. So the team that put together Cosmic Secret had been waiting on this payment from the distributor for over 3 months. That's the money that I'm talking about. So why would you take all of the money when Corey is using the excuse, well, we need to have an accounting take place? I said to Corey, the fair thing, you don't need to take 100% of everyone's money. These payments will be coming in on a monthly basis, at least for the next 6 months. An accounting should take no more than 2 months. At the very most, 10%, 20% of everybody's money, lay it aside. That would have been a fair thing to do. No, he wanted 100% of all the individuals' monies. Now, we must bear in mind that the team had been anxiously waiting for these hard-earned monies for over 2.5 months. These were the funds that they had legitimately earned and was owed to them. It should also be emphasized, and this is a very important statement, that Cosmic Secret, the documentary, is not Corey's documentary. He only owns 16% of the documentary. That means 84% is owned by the other people that worked on this documentary much harder and in a much more lengthy period of time than so did Corey Goode.
I think that's an important thing for people to know. There's a big, there's a lot of energy around that. A lot of people watching this documentary, a lot. Yeah, thank you.
All right. continuing to put these facts together so that the people can connect the dots.
Thank you.
The money grabbed by Corey had absolutely nothing to do with accounting. It was just another example of Corey's mean-spirited and vindictive dark side. This money grab was another one of Corey's devices to destroy Roger Richards. Corey knew fully well that seizing Roger's funds would cause immediate destitution for Roger, and that Roger desperately needed his money to pay rent, to keep two households afloat, his former wife's and child's household, and number two, his own household. I already explained to Corey, and he knew fully well that Roger's rents were, if they were not paid on time, if they were not paid within 3 days, eviction notices would be sent out. Furthermore, Corey was cunningly aware that with no money stream, Roger now would have no monies to pursue, watch, legal remedies regarding the business resolutions that had now gone sour for a settlement with Corey.
Pause right there, Leon. This is something that needs to be stated because we've seen this over the past few days of testimony in each and every situation. What happens when someone has a dispute with this person? It's like, I will take everything from you and I'm going to make it so you can't even you can't even sue me. You won't even be able to get an attorney. I mean, people need to hear this when they uphold these false light ascension prophets that we think are going to take us into the inner earth, and like the solar flash is going to happen and, we're all going to go. And, we've all heard about how he was told he was going to be the leader of the free world, which is a whole other interesting road we're going to go down later on. And yet this individual is intentionally trying to ruin this guy. And so I want you to go ahead.
And see, you picked up on something key here, Matthew. You said he intentionally tries to ruin. That's why I said we're dealing with the type of energy here that normal people can't even think of or conjure up. It's one thing to be greedy and say, I don't want to share with you, or I don't want to give you what you think you deserve. But Corey, now let's remember now, he was already sitting on a couple $100,000.
Couple $100,000, right? Okay.
And yet he doesn't want to be fair with this man that had worked for him and really built him, did everything for him, as Liz Laurie later did. And not only does he not want to be fair, then he turns around and wants to completely destroy you. It's one thing to just say, kiss my behind, you're not getting anything. But no, he has to then completely try to destroy that person. It's a very dark, nasty energy, and it is certainly not the law of one or any of the other things that he tries to expound upon.
That's the definition of service to self. For everyone that's all jumping, to take Corey Goode's new Law of One course, we're talking literal service to self entity right here. The definition.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that he's trying to do a Law to One course?
Yeah, he's his next course is the Law of One. I think it was already canceled.
Let me go on record right now and look into the camera and say Corey Goode is not qualified at all. Ethically, morally, spiritually, to teach a Law of One course or to teach anything at this point. Corey needs to sit down. Corey needs to go on a long sabbatical and get recalibrated is what Corey needs to do. I'll get into that toward the end. Corey is not qualified to teach a dog right now. He's not qualified to train a German Shepherd. That's how despicable Corey Goode is. So at any rate,
that's real. Thank you for bringing the authenticity. Thank you for being 100% real, Leon. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
So for the record, I defied Corey's injustice and distributed not only Roger's, but all of the team's legitimately earned monies. In addition to Roger, the rest of the team included Jordan Sather, Brandon Graham, Dave Everhart, and me. They had all been waiting for their payment. For those of you reading this correspondence or listening to this correspondence today, please bear in mind that Corey's money grab was taking place during the time of the COVID-19 virus quarantine, when individuals cannot work or bring other funds or make other funds into their families and homes. So I must say, how does a Corey Goode have the audacity to hold up his team's money at any time, much less in the time of a crisis, much less in the time of a COVID pandemic? This is beyond mean-spirited and diabolical. It's inhumane.
Agreed. Thank you.
The first quality of leadership is to help and watch over those that are in your care. This man is no leader. What kind of a team leader? No, what type of a human being, much less one who claims to have spiritual messages, could stoop to such a low level to do this to anybody, much less people that have been around him for years, much less people that put in all this hard work? I must also wonder how his attorneys could even write such a demand during a COVID crisis pandemic without cautioning their client of how abhorrent this action is. I hold them all responsible. It's inhumane, and it's certainly not spiritual. And for them to even act like they were in a spiritual community, this is the type of action maybe a gangster rapper would do to someone else.
It's actually funny you would even say that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think if we were to take, let's say we remove the names and we just talk about, you know, what actually happened or the actions that took place. I mean, this is almost like some like disclosure mafia don type activity. Like, it's going to be my way or the highway. I'm going to make you an offer you cannot refuse. Why? Because you won't be able to make any money. You won't have a law license. You won't be able to claim anything. I'm going to shut you down. Why? Because you asked me for money, because you asked me to give you back an investment that that I had placed into you, and through whatever form it is. I mean, over and over and over again, these are like mafia tactics. And I'm just going to say it because you guys, we've been going on and on here for quite some time. The people that actually watch through this whole thing, I think they're going to be coming to the same conclusion. I mean, these are like mafia tactics in disclosure, courtesy of Mr. Corey Goode. And so feel free to continue.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't like to do a lot of name calling. I rather stick to the facts, but Corey has operated in this community like a mafia gangster. He is a spiritual con man, is what he is. The sums we're speaking of were not Corey's money. It was the individual members of the team's money. They had worked for it, they had earned it, they had been waiting for it, and contractually they should have received it, and Corey had no right to it. For the record, that same week that the team was paid, I also sent Corey and David Wilcock their rightful percentage payments. I must emphasize, Matthew, that this was not about money. I say again, Corey personally had already collected over $150,000 at that time from his online course. This money grab was pure vindictiveness to destroy Roger Richards. So for those you diehard Corey fans that would say, no, Corey couldn't do that. Well, his letter dated to me February 6, 2020, and his attorney's follow-up letter clearly indicates his purposes and attempts to do so. As one of the team members stated to me regarding the money grab, you know, Leon, Corey went away for a 2-week sabbatical to Hawaii. And then he wrote this memo to us, a lot of BS stating that he had time to meditate and pray and do deep clearing while he was in Hawaii. A lot of BS, only to come back and say, oh, and by the way, screw all of us, take our money. The team member went on to say, what kind of meditation was that? And who or what was he hearing from?
Oh, that's a good question. Who or what is he hearing from? Who or what entity, who or what force is it that's influencing and guiding this process? That's actually a really good question. Whoever asked that one, thank you. Anyway, go on.
Another fact to show that the entire accounting ploy was just a cheap trick to seize the money. As previously stated, the company that did the accounting for me, as requested, turned all records over to Corey's chosen accountant, Matthew, way back in February of 2020. It is now mid-December, and we have not received one word from Corey's so-called accountant. Not one word since February. How long should a simple accounting take? One of the actions that led to the parting of the ways between Corey and I is because I defied Corey's demand to send him the team members' money. Those of you still wanting to defend Corey Goode, those of you that are still on the Corey Goode bandwagon, I ask you, how would you feel if Corey had done this to you?
Well, wait, hold on. So you're basically telling me that he had you take everyone else's money, and then he got pissed off at you when you gave them their money.
That is correct.
Huh. I think people, once again, it's this phrase has been said many, many times here tonight. People need to know this about their disclosure idols and their disclosure celebrities. This is what's really going on in the background. Where's the $150,000? People need to know this stuff. But anyway, go on, Leon.
I'll tell you what a real leader would have done. Let's reverse the whole thing, Matthew. Let's say that if the money was held up, it wasn't, but let's say if the money was held up and you're part of my team and I was just blessed to bring in $150,000, if I know the money's coming, I would have said, here guys, here's money for all of you until the other money comes. That's what.
If you're sitting on $150,000, I mean,
that's
come
my
on.
point.
Throw them a couple bones here and there, man. I mean, this is insane. Anyway, go on.
Let me show you how insane it really is. A year previously, Corey was waiting for the Above Majestic money to come in. That was the first documentary. I had just started trying to work with Corey and Roger at that time. They desperately needed money. Corey had blown through about $70,000 that someone had donated to him. And now he didn't have any money until the Above Majestic money was coming, and it wasn't coming for about another month, 2 months. So I went back to the person that made the donation, and they said they absolutely would not want to give Corey any other money. So then I said, okay, we've got Above Majestic, it's coming. Can you make a business loan? You know the money's going to be coming. They said, I'll tell you what, I like you, Leon. If you sign for the money, I'll make the business loan. So I did. I signed for the loan. $50,000 for Corey. I also made arrangements for another $35,000 to come to Corey so that his kids could go to a very special private school. At other times when the company needed some money until other monies came, I loaned the company over $20,000 on several occasions. I got the money back later, but I'm talking about the difference here. I'm talking about when you have a heart for people, you go out of your way to try and find how to make something work.
Yeah.
For the record, Since that time, now over a year ago, Corey has received close to over $900,000. If you talk about
Hold on. Whoa. Hold on there. Hold on. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, $900,000.
all right, well, let's do the math.
No, please go ahead. Please.
Okay. Liz Laurie, by her own statement, said that he collected 70,000 between January and now, correct?
That's on record, episode 1 right there. So we got 700 so far.
That's
Go ahead.
700.
Add it up.
So prior to that, he received close to $200,000 from the monies that came in for Above Majestic and speaking engagement, and then some of the money from Cosmic Secret. So you add that up, it's over $900,000. And here's my point. This man has received over $900,000, and he still has not attempted to totally repay the $50,000 that was given to him when he was destitute.
People need to start asking this question. People need to start asking their disclosure idols and their disclosure celebrities. When you find out that they're going through these multiple lawsuits and they got the networks and they're fighting this vague shadow war against the dark alliance, and then you find out, while they're begging for money for their Light Warrior legal fund, and then we find out we finally add it all up and it's nearly $1 million. And I'm just going to say it, Leon, maybe you don't have the answer to this question, but there's going to be some real smart people out there that are going to hear this. They're going to wade through all the data. They're going to wade through all the testimony, and they're going to say, what does Corey Goode need $1 million for? Why so much money? Why does he still need so much money? Because I guarantee you, out of all the star seeds that are putting money into Corey Goode's Ascension courses and already bought into the Law of One course, I know for a fact, because I see them writing in the message groups on Facebook, people are out there rolling quarters. They're literally grabbing, dollar bills from under the couch. They're saving their money to be a part of this guy's course, literally trying to make monthly payments for the content and this spiritual teaching that they didn't even create. And, we find out they're making $1 million off this. And I realize this is a long-winded question, Leon, but why does Corey Goode need all that money?
Corey spends money like a rock star. I used to ask the same question. Corey, where's all the money going? You would get $10,000 from a payment, and then a month later be broke. Where's all the money going?
Where's the money? Ladies and gentlemen, on Twitter, maybe we should start asking, where's the money?
But, maybe some people that have gone and given to the legal defense fund, maybe some of them need to start asking for their money back.
Very good point.
Maybe some of them should start demanding a refund. I would.
You'd think if you made $1 million that you would be able to at least pay a lawyer. But anyway, go ahead, Leon. Sorry.
Continuing to connect the dots. Additionally, Corey, who only owns 16% of Cosmic Secret, commandeered all future incoming payments from the distributor. So from May to now, December, the rest of the team has received no payments, nor do they have any idea of how much came in. Corey then later put the documentary on his own website, acting as if the documentary was completely his. Everyone else and all the other hard work be damned. Again, I emphasize, Corey Goode only owns 16%. Others own 84%.
Yeah.
So those of you that are determined to defend Corey at all costs, let me walk you through how he has treated others. Most of you don't know who Roger Richards is. And so therefore you can't relate to his mistreatment. But here's a name you know. Let me start with how Corey mistreated his best friend, David Wilcock. When I first started working with David, he found himself in a rough predicament. In good faith, David had already filmed his segment for Above Majestic. The documentary was now ready to premiere, yet David had not negotiated any understanding regarding his percentages for the documentary. So he asked me to get involved. I had a conversation with Corey. I called David with the result of the conversation. David was appalled to discover that his best friend Corey did not want to give him any percentage, even though the other major participants were receiving 15%. David actually cried on the phone, stating, "Leon, how could Corey do this to me? I'm the one that introduced him to Gaia. I'm the one that gave him a platform. I even helped him negotiate his contract. I'm the one who gave him validation regarding his story when so many others didn't believe him. How could he do this to me?" And then on several occasions, when Corey, once again, desperately needed money, David stated, "I did 3 different fundraisers for him, raising over $150,000 for Corey."
Okay, wait, hold on. Is that, Leon, is that in addition to the $900,000
Oh,
we're already talking
this was
about?
long before. We're talking
Okay,
2018.
we haven't even jumped into the 900,000 then if we're on this.
No.
Okay, once again, because this is the great myth that everyone sees. You know, they see this sort of partnership, they see this public face, you know, and behind the scenes, it sounds like this individual, Corey, was also ripping off David Wilcock. Not only was it Roger, not only was it Liz, not only was it Leon, not only was it Adrian and everyone else, you know, within this Ascension, you know, soul group, but also David Wilcock, the guy who, I mean, he did the, what is it? Fundraisers for over $150,000, got him on Gaia, gave him the platform. And
then Corey didn't want to give him a percentage. So here's what Corey said to me as I started negotiating. Corey stated to me that David was not a team player, that David, his popularity was at a low ebb until Corey came onto his show, that he has done as much for David as David did for him. Watch this. He then said that David was lazy, that David was unmotivated, that David Wilcock was arrogant, and that David had not done enough real work to deserve any percentage, and that he would simply offer David a sum of money. I said, "Well, Corey, what about the fundraisers?" "Well, Leon, you know, it wasn't 150,000. It was closer to 90,000 that he raised me." I said, "Excuse me?" To myself, it's like you were destitute, and now you're poo-pooing. Oh, it was closer to 90,000. What kind of sociopath are we dealing with here?
Yeah.
You talk about ungratefulness. He remembers no kindness that anyone has ever done for him. That's the mentality of a sociopath.
Yeah.
So I in turn stated to Corey, I said, "Look, Corey, you don't even have a sum of money to offer. And I'm not going to wait in good faith for backside money to come in for David." So long story short, after getting nowhere and negotiating with Corey and finding him to be unreasonable and stubborn and not willing to compromise, I went over Corey's head. I went straight to the distributor, had a meeting with them, and I got David the 15%. David was saying, "Can you at least get me 7%? I got David 15% that, as far as I was concerned, he should have received. So much for Corey treating his best pal. He calls David his best friend.
Right.
His best pal.
Publicly, right?
Yeah,
Publicly,
his best pal with any fairness. Let me move on. I now move on to Jordan Sather. It is a documented fact that the Above Majestic documentary started with Roger Richards and then Jordan Sather, long before Corey even knew the project existed. Jordan did many of the initial interviews and was a main participant for Above Majestic, and rightfully received 15% of the proceeds. Now, the Above Majestic contract, as most contracts do, contained sequel rights. And Cosmic Secret was initially outlined and conceived as Above Majestic 2. So as a major contributor of Above Majestic 1, Jordan certainly should have been baked in to a meaningful percentage in the sequel. However, Corey adamantly stated to me on several occasions that Jordan should receive no percentage of Cosmic Secret.
Why? Why?
He didn't have a reason why.
Huh. Interesting.
According to Corey, Jordan,
Yeah.
according to Corey, Jordan didn't deserve it. Because there's no loyalty to this man.
Yeah. No, we're seeing it time and time again. Yeah.
So Roger and I both stated that this was totally unfair, that it was not Jordan's fault that the name had been changed from Above Majestic 2 to Cosmic Secret, and that Jordan had done everything that he had been asked to do, and that he certainly deserved, if he's not getting 15%, he certainly deserved at least a minimum of 10%.
Something, anything at this point, right? I mean, it's like,
well, wow. It's not done. It was only after visiting the subject 5 or 6 times with Corey that Corey begrudgingly stated, well, give Jordan 5%. Now, this was at the time that he first started to work with Liz. And at the same time that he said, give Jordan 5%, he said, and give Liz 5% for doing the legal work. Now, for you readers, I want you to understand something. Corey was willing to give this new person who had only done 4 months worth of work for the team, the same percentage, which equals the same amount of money as Jordan would receive, who was the originator of Above Majestic, who was the catalyst for both documentaries, who had put in 2 years worth of work versus Liz's 4 months. And that is not fair. Wow. But that's the way Corey Goode rolls.
Welcome to the Sphere Being Alliance, you know. welcome to the mission, my friends. You will receive nothing in return. And actually, I'll probably sue you if you tell anybody about it. But anyway, go on.
So now I move on with Brandon Graham and Dave Everhart, 2 more brilliant members of the team. And for this explanation, because they had a history with Roger and Corey that predates my working with the team, rather than paraphrase, I lifted this explanation right out of Roger's letter to Corey. When it came to Brandon Graham and Emmy Award winners David Everhart, they had both worked with us. This is Roger talking to Corey, in good faith for over 2.5 years. If we were to put a price on it, they easily did over $100,000 worth of work when it came to production value, edit, special effects, rip reels, and work on the 20 and back treatment for the movie and the television show. Brandon and Dave, as well as everyone else, never received any compensation from you, Corey. Yet when there was an opportunity for them to finally be compensated, you only saw fit to give them a 10% participation, which is a mere 5% apiece after over 2.5 years worth of in good faith working on our projects. This is not right. The 5% apiece that you were begrudgingly giving them, by the way, is the same percentage you are now more than happy to give to Liz, who's been working with you a mere 4 months compared to the 2.5 years from Brandon and Dave. I know for a fact that it took Leon 2 months of back and forth conversations with you for you to finally cave in to give them at least now 15%, which equals 7.5% apiece, compared to yours and David's 16.5%. So now we're back to me speaking.
Go ahead.
So for those of you that are not familiar with the hundreds of hours it takes to do a production, let me put these percentages into their proper perspective. It took hundreds of hours for Roger Richards to do 6 different sets of outlines for this documentary, to pick the documentary's participants, to do the rescheduling of all interviews, to book hotels, plane reservations, pick the crew, sound, camera, editors, etc., find locations, and then be in charge of all the post-production work. Roger directed and filmed all of the on-camera interviews except for the 1.5 days of the David Wilcock interview. All the other interviews, Roger did. That's what Roger did. Hundreds of hours worth of work. Brandon Graham and Dave Everhart also put in hundreds of hours to do the post-production, editing, sound, color corrections, and all of the amazing special effects, all of which had to be done within a severe deadline. Toward the end of the production, because of the deadline, Brandon, Dave, and Roger were switching back and forth, putting in 24-hour around-the-clock schedules to make the deadline, sleeping less than 4 hours a day for over 2 weeks.
Meanwhile, what was Corey doing? Sorry to just throw that in there, but I think, like people are going to be like, all right, okay, but what was Corey doing during this
Okay,
time?
well, your timing's perfect. By contrast, Corey wrote one outline and only 5% of that outline was utilized. By contrast, Corey spent a total of 5.5 hours in one afternoon to be filmed. Yet he got 16% of Cosmic Secret. If Corey tries to say, no, more than 5% of my outline was used, well, that's easy enough to prove. One simply can look at Corey's outline versus looking at the finished documentary, and it's indisputable how little of his outline was utilized in the final product. It's really quite simple. It should be noted that even though Corey's work efforts were far less than Roger's, Brandon's, and Dave's, no one begrudged Corey his higher percentage. And the reason being is because Corey had the name, David Wilcock had the name, so they were expected to do the heavy lifting as far as promoting it. So everybody was trying, Matthew, to be fair. However, what was not appreciated was Corey demanding a co-director's title, which represented work efforts that clearly were not done.
Did he direct anything?
He didn't direct anything.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. Go on.
So the co-director title that he commandeered was certainly not warranted. So I continue to emphasize that with each transaction and each team member, I, Leon, was not playing favorites. I was always trying to point out and implement what was fair. I say it again, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and that goes for your business practice too. So now I bring to you an email that was sent in December of last year, December of 2019. So we're at the end of the year. And there had been no complaints from Corey, and certainly no one else from the team regarding, at that time, any payments or monies being out of order. So here's a quote from Corey. Leon, I want you to know how much I appreciate all of the good things you bring to the team. You have always tried to keep the team together and make sure everyone is paid and has what they need. You also bring a huge amount of wisdom and experience to the table that I and the others appreciate. When the issues with Gaia began, I was a mess, and you did step in and keep things going. So that's
a little bit of recognition there.
So that's the email of gratitude in December. So how is it January, February, March, 3 months later, I'm sued. 3 months later.
You're the Dark Alliance now.
Yeah, 3 months later, I'm this despicable person that is part of a smear campaign. How could things change so drastically within 3 months.
Very
So
good
here's what
question.
happened. I stood up to Corey.
Hmm.
I was not a yes man. I went ahead in February and distributed the funds that he tried to commandeer. Now watch this. I was not involved with or looking for participation in the DOD conference that is now disputed. I was not involved in Roger and Corey's other previous businesses like the graphic novel and various other things. So the only part I would have been involved in was the 20 and Back TV series and the 20 and Back movie, which I had set up major meetings for, which we can get into at another time. So I was not part of the business divorce. And I wasn't, if things had gone just different ways, wouldn't have been asking for anything except my percentages of 20 and Back and the TV series. So what changed?
Yeah.
For reasons already chronicled, I wouldn't go along with Corey seizing the team's money in his letter dated February 6th. By early March, Roger Richards had been pushed to the limit and wrote Corey a very explicit letter. Corey felt threatened, and as you viewed in his lawsuit, Corey, the so-called champion of disclosure and truth, wants Roger's letter forever sealed. The champion of disclosure and truth, yet he wants the letter forever sealed because the truth and incidents outlined are very damaging. So as part of his rampage, Corey had his attorney send me the following email. Hi, Leon. I received the below email message yesterday from Roger Richards. That was the letter. Please provide a response to the following questions. Watch this, Matthew, within 48 hours. 1, did you have any prior knowledge of the letter? Did you have any involvement with drafting or providing the content of the letter? Do you approve of the content of the letter? Was the letter emailed to you, copied to you, blind copied to you, or forwarded to you by Roger Richards? And here's a great capper. And if you do not provide a response to the above questions, it will be presumed that your answer to all the above is yes. Okay, so community, how would you feel if you received an ultimatum from Corey Goode and his lawyers that read like this to you? So 1, I didn't cave in to what I considered a bullying letter and one of coercion. I didn't cave in to a demanding ultimatum that Kennedy respond to whether he co-wrote the Roger Richards letter. Also, I did not cave in to what Kennedy thought of the letter's content. Also, I did not cave in to ultimatum, respond within 48 hours or you'll automatically be assumed guilty. Guilty of what?
It's a very good question. Guilty of what?
How dare you have the arrogance to send me or anybody a letter like this? But this is another perfect example of Corey's reign of terror and being completely out of control. And so I ask you in the community, how would any of you feel or respond to receiving such a bullying, threatening ultimatum like this? Who is Corey Goode to make ultimatums to anyone in this community? As far as I'm concerned, Roger Richards is an intelligent, grown man, quite capable of articulating his own thoughts. Who is Corey to ask what I thought of the contents? It's way, way out of line. And for Corey's lawyers to send something like this is outrageous. And I don't think any of you in the community would put up with this type of craziness. But this is another example of Corey's reign of terror to intimidate, manipulate, and dominate. You wanted examples, Matthew. I'm giving you example after example after example. This loving community has allowed Corey and his attorneys to get away with far too much, and now he's drunk with power. Corey has
turned on his attorneys, as we know.
Absolutely. Corey has this cavalier suing manner. And with me, because I did not cave in and answer on time, I never answered. Then at the last minute, I was thrown in a cavalier way into this lawsuit. If one reads the lawsuit, you can certainly detect from the way the suit is drafted that there were other business involvements that only Roger Richards and Corey Goode participated in. And if you go by the timeline, those timelines were long before I got involved. And yet I'm thrown into those same categories like I was right there.
Right.
Never.
You're now the Dark Alliance, right?
So just like with everyone else, all of the past, all of going beyond the norm, all of me going out and getting the $50,000 business loan for him and signing for it to guarantee it, all of getting the $35,000 for his kids, all of loaning the company money, none of those kindnesses are appreciated. It's all like you never did it. As far as setting things up for his business, people that would have never even returned, you know, he's always talking about his IP, my IP. I told him finally, I said, Corey, let me tell you something about you and your IP. The people that I put you in front of would not have even returned your phone call. That's how important Corey Goode was to Hollywood. Yeah. Let me just rattle off some of the things I did when it comes to Hollywood clout, because Hollywood clout is all about relationship. I got Corey a contract with Tracy Edmonds Entertainment. I put him in front of STX Studio. I brought in a major A-list director to look at 20 and Back, Antoine Fuqua. I got him in front of not just any old body, but the important people, the top people at Netflix. J.J. Abrams' company also looked at Corey's project. These are major players in Hollywood. Took him through Tracy to WME, William Morris Agency, for representation for the project. Corey could have never gotten into any of these doors. These are things Leon brought to the table. And we came very, very close to having a deal. Let me tell you what happened, because I think the people that are after disclosure should hear this. Netflix said, you know, it could be a good story. It was a good presentation. We need another element. We need either a key director or a key writer. I went out, and I guess he won't mind me saying his name. I went out and got Jim Hart, who wrote Contact and worked with Steven Spielberg and many other top people, if you look them up, and pitched the 20 and Back project to him. He was interested. I set it up for a meeting for Jim, Hart, Tracy Edmonds, myself, and Corey. And you know what Corey said? At this time, he was finished with Roger. And he said, you know, even if we could make a deal today, I'm not making any deal till after October, because that's when Roger's contract will run out.
So he shot his own deal in the foot to get this major movie deal with major writers and actual real stuff that you had set up for him, because he wanted to cut Roger Richards out of the deal.
That is absolutely correct. And Jim Hart said to me, I'm not going to sit around and wait for 4 or 5 months. So for those that really are interested in disclosure, and we would have put a lot of disclosure into the movie or into the TV series under the guise of entertainment, like Hollywood does, Corey doesn't give a damn about disclosure unless it can be done his way.
Yeah.
So he blew that deal. But now watch how despicable this man is. Then later, he circled back to Jim and said to Jim, I have sued Leon Isaac Kennedy. And Leon has defaulted in the lawsuit. In other words, Leon's guilty. So why don't you, Jim, get together with me and we'll have coffee?
Oh, Lord. So hold on. Pause. So after all that you did for him, hold on, because you already signed for $50,000 for Corey Goode on your own back. You already went back and you got another $35,000 for Corey Goode on your own back. This wasn't even for him. It looks like that was for the family. You put in all this work. You wrangled all the money. You even got him these deals. You put him in front of people. And, you know, there's a lot of talk on Facebook, a lot of talk on Twitter. Yeah, we're getting these big deals. Don't you know? We're about to do this big movie. And so in the background, we come to find out that after you yourself created and facilitated all those, you know, all those meetings, you know, like you got him in the door. And in the end, he tried to cut you out of the deal and go behind your back to the people that you had relationships with in Hollywood for years and go, hey, you know, don't you know the guy you've been working with forever? Well, he's actually dirty. You should work with me instead. And, you know, that's a very simplified way to say it, Leon, but forgive me if I'm wrong. It kind of sounds like what you're saying here.
It's mafiosa. Like you said earlier, it's gangster. He's not worth a damn.
Disclosure gangsters, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the nicest way I can say it. But let me show you how serious this is. Hollywood, for the most part, is a dog-eat-dog community. So what if Jim was not a good friend and he just simply heard, well, Leon is in a lawsuit. Leon has embezzled money. Leon has forged contracts. Leon has done this. Leon has done that. And he didn't say not a word to me, but he said it to other people. You know, when you get into the A-list, it's a very closed circle. So I could have been really hurt in this business with reputation and so on and so forth. 50 years worth of work could have been torpedoed by this liar. It's despicable. So he didn't care about disclosure, thought that he could wait until the contract had expired with Roger, and then apparently contract expired with me. And then he could go around and get a deal anyway. Guess what, Corey Goode? You're getting no Hollywood deals because the word is out in Hollywood that you sue everybody who wants to work with you. Nobody would take a chance on working with you. By the way, Matthew, if I